In this video, I'm going to deep dive into Thrall stats and show you some things you might not have known about them. Hello everyone, and welcome to another Conan Exiles video. I'm Exiled Phoenix, and this is a guide to Thrall stats. So the Exiled Lands is full of NPCs that can be captured, befriended, and asked kindly to fight for you. There are several NPC factions that scale from Noob River and become increasingly stronger as you head north and west. Or at least that's how it should be, if it weren't for the Cannibal Brute being so strong, despite being in only the second tier faction. But generally speaking, as you progress away from the starting area, NPCs get stronger. This is so that a tier 4 thrall from the volcano, for instance, which is tougher to fight or knock out, will also be stronger once converted to a thrall, as opposed to, let's say, a Noob River Exile faction thrall. As of Age of War, the order of faction tiers from weakest to strongest is arguably this: Exiles, Darfari Cannibals, Black Hand, Lemurians, Dogs of the Desert, Heirs of the North, Relic Hunters or Stygians, Votaries of Skelos, the Volcano Thralls, and Forgotten Tribe, Cimmerians. With a general introduction to factions out of the way, we now move on to the three main topics. For the purposes of all the following sections, we will only be referring to Tier 4 or named thralls. Alright, so number 1 is percentage totals. Now each thrall has a seemingly random percentage chance to level in a certain stat, which you can see here in the stat screen. So as you can see, this Cimmerian Berserker has 60% chance to increase in strength for each level, 50% chance to increase in agility, 70 for vitality, and 75 for grit. Now this is basically determining what percent chance this thrall has to gain a point in each of those when they level up. Then on top of that, there is a half of that percentage chance to gain a second point in that stat. So right now, let's say she were to level to level 1, she has a 60% chance to increase strength by 1 point, which will bump it up to 16, and if that happens, there's also a half that much chance, which is a 30% chance to increase by a second point, so she could get bumped up to 17 instantly in one level. Now these numbers are random as far as what each one can be, so like another Cimmerian Berserker could have like 50 in strength and 60 in agility, and 75 in vitality and 70 in grit, or some other completely random number. However, these numbers are not completely random. If you add all of these up on a Cimmerian Berserker, they will add up to 255 every single time. Same thing with the Dalinsia. If you add up all of these percentages, they add up to 255. So, that brings us to a new point. Each Thrall faction seems to have their own general number. Now for Cimmerians, which is Forgotten Tribe faction, they always seem to have 255 when you add up these percentages. Whereas I tried several different Black Hand Thralls, and they all seem to add up to somewhere between 310 and 320. Same thing with Darfari, despite these all being Cannibal Brutes, 2 of these were 315 and one of them was 318, so I assume, again, probably somewhere between 310 and 320. As far as Volcano Thralls, whether they were Dykus the Sharp, Area the Ravager, or any of the other 2 that are all identical thralls essentially, all of their percentages seem to add up to 260. As far as the Heirs of the North faction, whether they were archers or fighters, they all added up to 274. So bottom line is, each faction's tier 4 thralls seem to have about the same total percentage to increase. Now we're going to talk about Janos and Dalinsia a lot because these are 2 pretty good thralls. So Janos has a total percent chance of 274, and Dalinsia has a total percent chance of 255, meaning that Janos technically can get more points as he levels up, so that is something to take into consideration when choosing a thrall. But that does not mean everything. Just because a thrall has a high chance of increasing its stats does not mean it will get good stats. So this brings us into our second topic. Keep in mind that different thralls also have different hidden damage multipliers that you don't actually see in the game. So for instance, Janos' hidden melee damage multiplier is 1.84, and Dalinsia's is 2.24. So hers is actually a lot higher, meaning she's going to dish out more general damage. So that is the second thing you have to keep in mind when choosing a thrall. But that is not the only thing that determines damage. On top of all that, different Thralls' attribute numbers do not mean the same thing. So a Dalinsia with 30 vitality would not mean the same as a Janos with 30 vitality. Obviously, they don't start out with the same HP at level 0, as you can see. Dalinsia starts out with 700 more HP about than Janos. But if we look into their stats, we'll see that Dalinsia gets a smaller amount of HP per point in vitality than Janos does. And this is pretty easy to see because even at level 0, both of these Thralls start out with some vitality. Dalinsia starts out with 30, and Janos starts out with 10. And they literally give you a vitality health bonus down there, which is 617 on a Janos. So 617 health divided by 10 vitality is 61.7 HP per point in vitality. And then Dalinsia, if we do the math here, 1149 divided by 30 vitality, we get 38.3 HP per point in vitality, which is not much more than half as much as Janos. So Janos, if he had a good percentage chance to increase in vitality, like let's say that vitality was swapped with agility, so that the vitality was at 76%, he would probably end up with more health at level 20 than she would at level 20. Another thing you might not know, and this could actually be a fourth bullet point, but we're going to keep it in the third one because it's technically an attribute as well. So just because one Thrall has 30 strength starting out, like let's say a Janos, and then Dalinsia only has 15, that does not necessarily mean that Janos is going to hit harder than Dalinsia. So if we do the math here, they actually help us out here a little bit too. The max strength damage bonus, and this is completely separate from the hidden melee damage multipliers by the way. This max strength damage bonus is 14% when he has 30 points in strength. So if we do the math for that, we basically get about 0.47% damage bonus per point in strength. And for a Dalinsia, if we were to do the math here with her 6% with 15 points in strength, she would get about 0.4% damage bonus per point in strength. But what I decided to do, because 6% is not a very big number, that literally is a rounded number that could be as low as 5.5% or it could be as high as 6.4%. And so what I decided to do was level up a few Dalinsias. And I had a few Dalinsias and Janos leveled up on one of my servers. So I checked the math on them, and it turns out Dalinsia is a little bit closer to 0.38% per point in strength. And Janos ends up being about 0.5, so a little bit higher. So Janos is basically going to get a little bit more damage per point in strength than Dalinsia, and since he already starts out at 30, he's going to technically hit harder, but again, his actual melee damage multiplier is so much lower, being only 1.84, and hers being 2.24, that he's still going to do a little bit less damage anyway. But I think once he hits level 20, he would hit comparably to her. Now, let's add in a Cannibal Brute. Now they start out with 0 strength and 0 vitality, so there's no way to find a vitality health bonus with these Thralls. However, I do have some level 21s on my server as well. And basically, they get 59.6 HP per point in vitality. And they get about 0.8% strength damage bonus per point in strength, which is pretty crazy, considering Dalinsia is at 0.38 and Janos is at about 0.5. So they get a crazy amount more damage per point in strength than Janos' or Dalinsia's. And also they get comparable HP to Janos' 59.6 HP per point in vitality. Janos only gets 61.7 and Dalinsia only gets 38.3. So these Cannibal Brutes are pretty crazy with how they level up, considering they're only a second faction Thrall. Like, they're supposed to be the second weakest faction, but they get crazy numbers. Yeah, they don't start out with very much health at the beginning, but one of mine actually has 4600 HP at level 20, and that's without an authority build. And they hit hard. By the way, their damage multiplier is 3.12. which is actually considerably higher than even Dalinsia's. So these things are going to hit like an absolute truck and still have a pretty good amount of HP at the end. On top of that, they are fast levelers, and again, they have really high percentages to level as well. Like, it's not uncommon to get 100% in a certain stat, even vitality. And again, they are fast levelers, so they basically take 1/3 the amount of time to level as a Dalinsia would, and half the amount of time as a Janos or a Lian would. So that is our deep dive into Thralls today, guys. I hope it wasn't too confusing. If you learned something, make sure to hit that like button. And as always, if you'd like to see Conan Exiles guide videos like this, or Conan Exiles PvP stories, go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any of the good content. Thanks for watching, guys, and I will see you all in the next one. Also, if you've not seen my PvP build video for Age of War, go ahead and check out this video here at the end.